We are in Torah Yud Tet in Likutey Moharan, Seif Dalit, part 4 in this Torah. This Torah is called Tfilah L'Chabakuk. And Rebbe Nachman is explaining to us in this Torah how to lift up and elevate our physical self, purify our physical self so that it's completely aligned with our higher self to such a degree that our face takes on the characteristics, metaphorically, of a mirror, that anyone who gazes into our face will be intrinsically motivated to return to Hashem. They will be intrinsically, inherently motivated to find, they will recognize within themselves all those aspects that are less than perfect, and they will be naturally motivated to fix those parts, to fix those aspects, and they will be guided. They will be guided and motivated to take the path of teshuvah, to fix and rectify all of those aspects within themselves which are less than perfect. And in our face, they will see their face, like in a mirror. They will see their reflection. They will see those parts within themselves that are rectified, that are fixed, that are completed. And they will see those parts within themselves which are less than perfect. And they will be naturally motivated to fix that. And part of this, included in this power of becoming like a mirror, is that we have Malchut. What does it mean that we have Malchut? The Gemara teaches us that Kol mi sheyesh bo yirat shamayim dvarav nishma'im. One who has the fear of Hashem, which is a state of consciousness, his words will be accepted. That means that he has the power to influence others positively. And when we say positively, in a positive way, it's because it's impossible for a person to have Yirat Shamayim and to influence others in a less than positive way. So the fear of Hashem, that awe of Hashem, means that the person is integrated within the oneness of Hashem. It's a state of consciousness, as we said. And what that means is that the person now has the power to influence all of creation in the same way that the creator of all creation has the power to influence. And to the degree that the person is included in the oneness of Hashem, to that degree, that person will also be included in the influence of the creator upon its creation, upon his creation, which Hashem's influence on creation is infinite. It's complete. It's complete. There's no limit. It's limitless. Okay? Because all of creation needs the creator in each and every moment. And so to the degree that the person has Yirat Shamayim, and through that Yirat Shamayim, that person is included in the oneness of Hashem, then that's the degree that that person will be included in the power to influence all of creation in the same way that Hashem influences his creation. Because the creation does not exist without Hashem, right? This is a very important rule that we know. In Kabbalah and Chassidut, the Tanya speaks about it. In the physical world, when a person creates something, he creates, let's say, a house. So he takes bricks, he takes the cement, he takes the wood, whatever it is that he uses to build a house. It's from things, objects that are already there. And all the person is doing is reassembling them, shaping them and reassembling them in a certain fashion, in a certain form, and building a house from it. And as soon as the person finishes building the house, he leaves the house alone. The house stands by itself. It doesn't need anything from the one who built the house, from the builder. But when Hashem creates the world, when Hashem is creating anything, because there is nothing except for Hashem, and so everything is dependent on Hashem for its existence in each and every moment. And so aside from the fact that Hashem fashions and forms the elements of creation into a certain form and creates everything that is in the universe is created from a certain combination of the four elements of Yud Ke Vav Ke. Aside from that, those elements themselves only exist because Hashem is in each and every moment giving it existence. And so the existence of everything within the universe is absolutely, completely dependent on Hashem in each moment for its existence. It doesn't exist without Hashem. We are, compared to a creation, a figment of Hashem's imagination, that in each moment Hashem sort of needs to, so to speak, imagine us into creation in order for us to exist, right? And so that is absolute influence. That is absolute control, absolute power. That's complete Malchut. And that is the revelation of Malchut, right? Because we know that Malchut means the letters of Yud Ke Vav Ke, and the Malchut is the 22 letters of the Torah, which is what gives life to all of creation. So that's the power to influence. It means that it is the source for the existence of everything in creation in each and every moment. And to the extent that a person is included in that, with that Yirat Shamayim, with that Av Hashem, then that person has the power over reality, the power to influence reality. And it's obviously only a power to influence reality in a positive way, because that's what Yirat Shamayim means. It means that a person has become included in the oneness of Hashem, in the will of Hashem, and that positive intention of Hashem in each and every moment. And so it's only a positive influence. And so the tzaddik has this power. When you gaze upon the face of the tzaddik and you hear the Torah directly from the tzaddik, as we'll see that these are the two aspects involved in hearing the Torah directly from the tzaddik. That's what this Torah Yutet in the Likutey Moharan is teaching us, the significance of hearing Torah, listening to the Torah directly from the tzaddik while gazing upon his face. And so when you hear Torah from the tzaddik directly, there is this power of Malchut, there's this power of Yirat Shamayim. And that power, what that means is that Torah is absorbed, it's accepted within our heart. It has the power to influence us profoundly, as we said, to be naturally and inherently motivated, intrinsically motivated to follow that Torah, to better ourselves, to do teshuvah. And Rebbe Nachman in this Torah is outlining for us the process that each one of us can go through on some level to take on these characteristics, the characteristics of the tzaddik. The tzaddik has gone through this process, and we'll see it's not the easiest process. It's a very lofty level. But each one of us has, on some degree, the ability to connect ourselves to this and to include ourselves in this lofty level. And Rabbi Nachman teaches us that it comes down to the two pillars which are really one pillar, the pillar that Shlomo HaMelech calls B'tzadik Yesod Olam, the pillar that the Torah calls the Tzadik Yesod Olam. The Tzadik is the pillar upon which the world stands. And this pillar is made up of two aspects both of them are aspects of the sphere of Yesod. Yesod means the foundation. It's the foundation of the world, and it's the foundation of existence, right? And this is the brit, the covenant, the connection between our existence and the oneness of Hashem, the infinite existence of Hashem, the unlimited existence of Hashem. Our existence is completely dependent on the existence of Hashem, as we explained. And when our existence is in a clear way, properly connected, okay, there's no interference. It's a clear connection, a clear inclusion between the creation and the creator, between us and Hashem, then that's called the brit. That's called the covenant. Covenant, a brit, even the literal understanding of it, what does it mean, a brit? What does it mean, a covenant? It means that these are two people that love each other very much, and they cannot be separated from each other because they love each other so much. And so what they do is each one of them gives to the other something that is from their essence, from their essential self. And in this way, even if they go their own ways, even if there is a distance between them, they are not separated because they have with themselves an essence of the other. And so that's what a covenant is. Some used to do it with they would mix the blood between them. The blood is the essence of the person. But the whole idea of the brit is that each one gives from the essence of themselves to the other, and like that, they're always connected. And so the aspect of the brit is a deep connection of the essential self between the two entities, of these two entities. And that's the connection that Hashem allowed us when he blessed us with a brit. It's the ability to be connected, the creation with the creator, in such a clear way that the illusion of separateness, the darkness of this physical world is not interfering in any way that deep connection. Okay, the creation is completely included in the creator. That's the aspect of brit. And the brit has two different sides to it, two different parts to it. There is the Lashon HaKodesh, the speaking in a holy way, speaking in a way that the creator speaks. Okay, speaking in alignment. Our speech is in alignment with the speech of our creator. And then there's the creator, and then there is the holiness of the brit, the sexual holiness, or the holy sexuality, where a person has lifted up their sexuality to a state of godliness. Okay, so that it is used the way it's intended to be, it was intended to be used, to create and to increase the glory of Hashem with the children that we bring to the world. And in these two ways, when a person has brought these two aspects of themselves to a state of holiness, to a state of connection with our creator, that's the ultimate fulfillment of the brit. Okay, where a person has taken their power to speak, which is on some level an independent power. When a person speaks, they speak their mind, they speak their heart, they speak their experience, they speak their thoughts. It seems to be that when a person speaks, that they are expressing their individuality, their individual self. And so that is on some level an expression of the individual essential self, the individual essence of the person, the individuality of that person, and the sexuality of a person as well. Okay, that's where a person is expressing their own individuality. And that's even easier to understand than speech, how speech is the expression of the individuality of the person. And here a person is taking both of these and he is connecting them to source, connecting the speech and the sexuality to the creator. And there's a bond that's happening between the creation and the creator. You're including your individual self and reintegrating it in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in the oneness of Hashem. And that's exactly what we're speaking about. That's what the brit is. And when a person does that, so then they have this power of Malchut, the power to influence, that positive influence, to bring the whole world back to Hashem. That's what Yosef tzaddik, that's his power. Okay, Yosef tzaddik, the Arizal teaches us that when he commanded and he brought all of the Egyptians in that generation, he commanded them to circumcise themselves. He brought the whole Egyptian nation to circumcision, to circumcise themselves. And the Arizal teaches us that generation of the Egyptians were incarnations Gilgulim of the generation of the Mabul and the generation of the Palaga, right? Of these great souls. They were great souls that kept on coming back and kept on causing more and more damage. Unfortunately, even though they were great souls, but those souls had fallen to such darkness that every time they came back, they would cause even more darkness in the world. And then they came back as this generation of the Egyptians in the time of Yosef. And Yosef is, the aspect of Yosef is the tzaddik of the generation that brings the whole generation, the whole world back in teshuvah. And that's why he commanded them, he had the power to not just command them, but everyone circumcise themselves in that generation. And when he did that, the Arizal teaches us that their next lifetime, their next incarnation, they were actually the Bnei Israel. They were born as Jewish people in Mitzrayim. The next generation, they were born as the Bnei Israel in Mitzrayim, who went through the terrible, terrible pain and suffering that the Jews went through in the exile of Egypt, in the exile in Mitzrayim. And that terrible pain, the terrible challenges that they went through is what, in the greatest way, brought them to a tikkun, to such a rectification, that in all their past lives, when they were the generation of the Mabul, the generation of the Palaga, and when they were the Sodom, also the Arizal teaches us, Sodom, and the Egyptians, but the brit that Yosef brought them to do, the circumcision, allowed them now to be born as Jews. Now, through the she'ibud of Mitzrayim, the exile of Mitzrayim, they were rectified to such a state that they can also receive the Torah. Okay, this is the generation that now receives the Torah. Now they become the nation of Hashem. Imagine such a tikkun from one lifetime to the next. Okay, and that's in the power of Yosef. So that's the aspect of Yosef, and every generation to bring the generation back to Hashem. And so Rabbi Nachman is explaining to us about the tree of life. On the one hand, you have the tree of life. On the one hand, you have on the other end of the spectrum the serpent, the primordial serpent, Nachash HaKadmoni, and in the middle you have the tree of good and of knowledge of good and evil. And these represent the three women that Shlomo HaMelech speaks about. You have the Isha Chachama on the one hand, right? On the side of the spectrum that represents perfection, that represents the tree of life, you have the Isha Chachama, the woman of valor, the woman of wisdom, of holy wisdom. On the other end of the spectrum, the side that represents the primordial serpent, you have the Isha Eshet Ksilut, the woman of foolishness. And this is also representing what the Gemara teaches us: a person does not sin unless a spirit of foolishness possesses him. And that's the primordial serpent. And then you have in the middle this woman that is called Isha Maskelet. Okay, the woman that brings understanding. The woman that enlightens us. And we said that the word maskelet can also be read mishakelet. The same order of the letters, but just a different pronunciation. Maskelet enlightens us, or mishakelet causes destruction. Okay, because this woman in the middle has two sides to her, two potential selves. It's the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And so there's the good side and the evil side. And this is representing the klipa of Nogah that we spoke about. And this is also the scale. In the Zohar, it's called the tikla. This Nogah klipa is called the tikla, the scale. Tikla is the Aramaic word for mishkal, because it has the one side it's up and the other side it's down. And so it's always up and down. It's kind of like comparable to in Parsha Toldot, where we know about Yaakov and Esav, Kishizeh kam zenofel. When this one goes up, the other one goes down, right? And so there's a constant, the lifting up on one side means that automatically the other side is going down. Okay, and so this is the aspect of Nogah, the aspect of the scale. the aspect of knowledge of good and evil. And we said that the primordial serpent has no way of injecting its venom into the holy woman, Chavah, if it were not through the tree of good and bad, the middle woman. Okay, the middle woman is like a metavech. She's like an intermediary that the primordial serpent uses to persuade the holy woman and to get close to her in order to bring her down. And so through the middle woman who has good and bad potentials within her, the primordial serpent goes up through the bad side of her, okay, the mishakelet, isha mishakelet, and brings down the good within her, conceals the good within her, so that through that, he is able to inject his venom in this woman of valor and bring her down. And that's what he did at the beginning of creation through the Eitz Hadat Tov Hara. The Gemara tells us that the primordial serpent injected his venom in Chavah. And that's why people die. Since then, people die. Okay, the nature of man to die comes from death itself. Death comes from this primordial serpent. Okay, and so let's read a little bit inside. Rabbi Nachman tells us, ועיקר בניינה ושלמות של לשון הקודש אינו אלא על ידי שמפילין הרע של התרגום ומעלין את הטוב שבתרגום. We spoke about how the power of the klipa, here let me start a few lines before, כי לשון תרגום יש בו טוב ורע. The language of Aramaic, the language of Targum, has within it good and bad, okay, good and bad options, possibilities. Sometimes it's the quality of intellect, of clarity, of enlightenment. And sometimes it's the aspect of destruction. And this woman of foolishness persuades the woman of valor, the woman of holy wisdom, through the intermediary, the woman of intellect. Okay, and this is the aspect of Arami Oved Avi. Arami is Lavan, right? That's the simple explanation of the pasuk. It's referring to Lavan ha'Arami. He came from Aram, and the Lavan is where we get this language of Aramaic. And he tried to destroy my father, the pasuk says. He tried to destroy my ancestor. And that's referring to Yaakov, my father Yaakov. And Yaakov is called my father Avi, and the father aspect is the aspect of Chochmah. And so what that means is that the Targum tries to destroy Chochmah. And Chochmah is the woman of valor, which is called the woman of the wise woman, the woman of holy wisdom. And that's destroyed, or the primordial serpent, the Nachash HaKadmoni, tries to destroy it through the Targum. Okay, this is also the power of Balak came from this. Okay, the power of Balak also came from this Targum. Shehu Lashon Targum. Shehu Lashon Arami, which is the language of Aram. This is the side through which the klipa tries to lift itself up, to steal away, to suck away and steal away its sustenance from the side of holiness. And so when we speak about the holiness of this language, speaking in a holy way, Rabbi Nachman constantly refers to it as shlemut leshon hakodesh, the perfection of the holy language. It's not about the holy language. It's not only about the holy language, it's about perfecting the holy language, bringing the holy language, bringing the Malchut to a state of perfection. That means, what does it mean, a state of perfection? It means that all of the sparks of holiness that had been stolen from her in the past are now being brought back to her. If you recall, there was a Torah that we spoke about, Shlemut HaMizbeach, the perfection of the Mizbeach. Okay, and Rabbi Nachman in that Torah was speaking about how there are parts of the holy Mizbeach. The Mizbeach, again, Rabbi Nachman is teaching us, taught us, and the Zohar teaches us that the Mizbeach represents the Malchut. Right? The altar is the Malchut. And the Lashon HaKodesh here, the holy language, is also the Malchut. And Rabbi Nachman taught us in that Torah that there are parts of the Mizbeach that are sawed off and stolen away. And these are the holy souls that were lost from the Jewish nation throughout the generations, throughout the exiles, because of the sins, throughout the many generations, throughout history. And when those holy sparks, those holy souls are returned to its source, returned to the Malchut, that's called the perfection, the perfected state of the Malchut. So what does that mean? That the perfection of the Shekhinah, the perfection of the Malchut, the perfection of Hashem's presence dwelling in this physical world is when all the aspects of godliness are reconnected with its source. And throughout the whole universe, it's recognized in a clear and profound way that wherever there is a spark of godliness, that spark is part of the glory of Hashem. It's not separate from Hashem. That's the tikkun of the world. It's recognizing all the sparks of holiness throughout the whole universe, recognizing that it's not separate from Hashem, that it's part of Hashem's glory. Okay, and it's returned to glorifying Hashem's name, to the oneness of Hashem. And so that's called the perfection of the Malchut, when all the sparks of the Malchut are returned to her. And so in the same way here, when we call it the perfection of the holy language, it means that all the sparks of the holy language are returned to it. Now, where are those sparks found? Where have they fallen to? And so we just explained that in the tree of knowledge of good and evil, there is a mixture of sparks of godliness, sparks of good within the evil, within the black, within the darkness. And those sparks are, the primordial serpent, the Nachash HaKadmoni, is trying to steal those sparks in order to steal away that energy, that life energy, that sustenance from the side of holiness. And so these sparks of holiness are found in the mixture of the Eitz Hadat Tov Hara, of this tree of knowledge of good and evil. And in order to bring the Lashon HaKodesh, the holy language, to a state of perfection, we need to go into this place of Targum, into this mixture, and we have to select and lift up and return those sparks of holiness to the holy language, to the Malchut. And when we do that, then she is called Shleimut Lashon HaKodesh, the perfected state of the holy language. And that's what we are aspiring to. That's what Rabbi Nachman explains here. In that mixture, we have to cause the darkness of the Targum, the evil of that Targum, to fall away, to be subdued and to be dissolved, and at the same time lift up and elevate the good in the Targum and return it to the holy language. That's our goal. Okay, that's our purpose. That's how the holy language is perfected. Lavan Arami shuhu Arami oved avi hanal רצה לינוק מהקדושה על ידי התרגום, ועל כן קרא לו יגאל סהדותא. ויעקב היה מעלה את התרגום מלשון הקודש, ועל כן קרא לו גלעד בלשון הקודש. And Lavan, who was from Aram, Lavan, who was the Arami, which is where Targum comes from, this language comes from, he was trying to lift himself up, to ascend. Right? He tried to steal the sparks from the side of holiness by using the language of Targum. And that's why when they made this covenant, this covenant of peace between Yaakov and Lavan, so that each one, this was a covenant that meant a separation between them, that one would not try to harm the other. Okay, so it's a covenant of separating between, a covenant of peaceful separation. At that point, Lavan tried to go up and steal from the side of holiness by calling that rock, calling it Yegal Sahaduta. Yegal Sahaduta, it's one of the only places in the whole Torah that in the Torah itself, in the holy language, we have the words of Targum. Yegal Sahaduta is an Arami. It's in this Aramaic language. Yegal Sahaduta, he used that Targum language in order to steal the sparks of holiness within that place of Nogah, and through that he would be able to also persuade the woman of valor and steal from her that sustenance. But Yaakov did the complete opposite. Yaakov made sure that when Lavan called it Yegal Sahaduta, Yaakov saw directly, he saw profoundly into that intention of Lavan. He saw what he was trying to do, and Yaakov called it Gal Ed, which is the version of that in Hebrew, in Lashon HaKodesh, in the holy language, right? The Gal Ed is the words Yegal Sahaduta in Lashon HaKodesh. What it means is the Gal is the pile of Ed. Ed is a testimony. A testimony, a memorial of peace. This testifies to the peace between us. וזהו ויפל השם אלוהים תרדמה, מספר תרגום כמובן, כי על ידי התרגום עיקר בעניינה של לשון הקודש. And that's why when Hashem built Chavah, right? When Hashem created Chavah from Adam, so he put him to sleep in order to separate Chavah from his body and create her as a person unto herself, an individual person. And the passage says, "Vayapel Hashem Elohim tardema," and Hashem made man fall into a deep sleep. That's what tardema means, a deep sleep. But the word tardema, says Rebbe Nachman, is the same numerical value as Targum. So sleep is the aspect of Targum. That's what Rebbe Nachman is pointing out to us here, and we'll see later on what are the ramifications of this. But think about it now. We have this model that we keep on coming back to, right? The three women, the three aspects. You have the wise woman, the woman of foolishness, and the woman of intellect. You also have the tree of life. You have the serpent, the primordial serpent, and the tree of good, of knowledge of good and evil. Okay, and so this is this model, the three aspects. And now imagine how that would be reflected in the three different states that a person goes through. A person has the state where he's awake. A person has a state where a person is not alive. And so it's the complete opposite of wakeful, lively state of consciousness. A person has that state on the one side of complete life, where a person is awake and a person is functioning consciously, completely. Then the person has the state where a person is not alive, which is the complete opposite. And then there's the middle state in between life and death, where a person is asleep. The Gemara tells us that when a person is sleeping, that's 1/60th of death. Okay, because the person is not completely conscious in their physical body. There's only one small part of the soul that still stays in the person's physical body when a person is asleep. That means that there's only one small part of a person's consciousness that stays in a person's body while he's asleep. When a person dies, so then 99.99% of the person's consciousness leaves the body. There is still a tiny amount that stays in the body. The Zohar calls it Havla de Garmeh. It's like a spirit that rests in the bones of the person. And through that, a person will come back to life. And that's why when we go to the cemetery, we are able to speak to those that are buried. We're able to speak to them and communicate with them and pray for them. That's why we go to visit them at the cemetery. If there was nothing left in the bones, there would be nothing to do there. But there is a tiny amount that's left in the bones. When a person is sleeping, there is a lot more that is left in the whole body of the person. But it's still a very, very, very small percentage of the person's consciousness relative to when a person is awake. When a person is awake, so then the complete consciousness, or most of the consciousness, is there in a much greater way. And so if you would look at these three states, now you have these three aspects, you see right away the correlation between this and the three women that we were speaking about. The wise woman, the woman of valor, the holy woman, is a complete consciousness. Okay, it's the waking state. The primordial serpent, the nachash kadmonit, the woman of foolishness, is the aspect of death, as we spoke about before. And then in the middle, you have the sleeping state, where a person is not completely alive and not completely dead. And so that's the aspect of tardema, sleep. And that's the aspect of Targum. Lashon HaKodesh, the holy language, is the wise woman, the waking state. The Lashon HaKodesh is the wise woman. The language of Targum is in the middle, and the 70 languages of the Klipa is represented by death. It's represented by complete death. In the middle, like we said, is the language of Targum, which is a mixture of good and bad. So it's a mixture of wakeful consciousness, well, not complete wakeful consciousness, a mixture. There is some consciousness there, even though the person is asleep. And so these are how they are represented, these three aspects. And so we'll see more about this in the next year, Bezrat Hashem.